Hi, everyone. This is Jess with Jess Smith Coaching. I'm excited to chat with you today because I have another special guest on the line. Today, we're speaking with Chris Lonas. Hey, Chris, how's it going?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. Thank you. So, Chris has a diverse background in administration, management, and human resources, and he's currently a full cycle recruiter. He's a lover of education, personal development, volunteering in his free time, and he loves supporting job seekers in any way that he can. So I'm super excited to host him today. And Chris, so we are in the midst of the coronavirus and all of the crazy impacts that it has had. And a lot of people have recently and unexpectedly lost their jobs. I've actually been kind of shocked to see all of the different posts on LinkedIn about people who either lost jobs that they've had for some time, or I've talked to other people too who have had offers that got rescinded, unfortunately, during this period. And so this scenario of losing your job is something that you have been through in the past. And so I would love for you to give everyone just a quick recap of the backstory of kind of what happened on your end with losing your job in the past.
Yeah, absolutely. So back in January 2014, I had been working with a hospital for 10 years. My last position was in management, and the position had a merger back in 2010 with a bigger organization. And as changes happen after mergers do, they started to focus on all of the jobs and things like that, and making sure that all the flow charts mirrored the parent company's flow charts. Well, in January 2014, it was time for my department to be hit. So when my department got hit, my position that I had did not really fall underneath of the umbrella of opportunities that the parent companies did. So my position got eliminated. So I can remember a Friday in January, sitting at my desk. The day is about to end, and it's been a rough day at work. And I can remember my boss walking in and telling me it was going to be my last day.
Wow.
And shocking. um, but yeah, so that happened back in 2014, and it's kind of one of the reasons why I love helping job seekers as much as I do, because I know what they're going through, because I've been through it myself.
Yeah. So what feelings did you experience when this happened? Like you just used the word shocking. Like I can't even imagine.
Mhm. Oh my goodness. Yeah. So I guess you could say lost. I felt alone, betrayed, but mostly I felt like a failure. Um, Being a failure is one of my greatest fears, and losing a job opportunity definitely made me feel that way. A lot of other reasons as well that go with that, but yeah, so definitely felt lost. I didn't know where I was going to go from there. Didn't know how I was going to pay for my bills. Didn't know how I was going to take care of my family. Um, yeah, it was a pretty rough time at the time, I got to say.
Yeah, completely. And I want to pause for a second on that feeling like a failure piece, right?
Hmm.
Huge.
Absolutely.
That that's a fear for a lot of people, whether we realize it or not. Sometimes it's conscious, sometimes it's subconscious, but I think that's massive is no one wants to fail. And it's interesting that that feeling comes up when really the restructuring had nothing to do with you and your abilities.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah, it was just one of those things. They hit the department, and my job wasn't on that list. And it was just one of those things where it wasn't personal, it was business. And unfortunately, business decisions happen, and got to remember not to take it personal. I think that was the hardest thing at the time for me, because I was growing in the company and in the organization. I had a lot that I felt like I was providing, and I did. I took it personal and thought maybe I did something wrong, and I questioned that for a long time. But the reality is it was completely opposite. It was just a business decision. My position just didn't fall into that category that they needed. So.
Yeah. How did you start to manage those feelings of failure or like dig yourself out of that?
Um, my faith is big with me. I'm a really strong believer in my faith. I actually believe in Philippians 4:13, which is, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. And I found a lot of power within that. A lot of people don't know it. I actually have that tattooed on my upper arm as a gentle reminder to myself to remember where my strength comes from. But I was really motivated by the fact, at the time, I had just purchased a house July of 2013, and we just had our second child in August of 2014. Well, August of 2013, and I lost my job in January 2014. So directly following that situation of two major life changes, I lost my job. So I had to stay motivated because I knew that I had to be able to support something greater than myself, which was my family, my friends, people that relied on me, people that wanted me to succeed, that even if I thought that I wasn't, they want me to hold the strength up to show that I can. So that really gave me the motivation to push forward.
Yeah. So is being strong for all of your other people during this.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Because if I showed that it was really getting to me and making it hard for me, it's going to make it harder for them. So I had to stay strong and show them that, hey, this is just a cycle. This is just something bad that happened, but you got to look at the positive to everything, and that there's going to be a better opportunity along the way, and just got to find what that opportunity is and kind of chase it.
Yeah, completely.
And I did.
Yeah. And I love that you have, your quote that's really empowering to you, a quote that I have too. I was like, I have one of those. That kind of bad times is this too shall pass. Like you said, this is a moment in time. This is just something that's happening right now. It's one piece of the story, right? And I think that's important for us to remember. This is one piece, and now we get to move on to bigger and better things, right? Mm-hmm. 3 years from now, when all these people who have just lost their jobs, when they're like thriving in their new careers, they're going to be like, they're not going to be thinking about this anymore.
Mm-hmm. Oh, absolutely. They're going to look back on it and remember the hard times, but they're also going to be able to see where it made a change in their life that they would not have thought would have occurred had that not happened. And most of the time, what I've noticed is that people actually come out ahead when something like that happens. It's just the lull that you're in, and you've just got to learn to get through it. And when you get through it, you're stronger for it. So,
yeah. My coach keeps saying that when there's fear, that creates fear. And she was saying, if you have dragged your feet in the past, like, now's the time that you can really get into things. So it's a great, maybe I won't say a great motivator, but a motivator in really like digging in, like, what do I want? Where am I going now? How am I going to get there?
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's good.
So how long did you end up going without full-time employment after you lost your job?
Oh boy, 7 months. I did have a 3-month stretch where I was a contracted project manager. Basically what that meant was that during the lull, if you will, where I did lose my job, the hospital did try to find me a new opportunity. Unfortunately, at the time, the hospital was also in a holding pattern for hiring because they were really starting to make a lot of changes in their structures. So they were only focusing on essential positions, and they didn't have any management opportunities for me unless someone left. At the time, people were really not leaving. They knew what was going on. So 3 months of that time, I was a project manager. But after that, it was 4 full months without any employment at all. So yeah, it was a challenge to go through all of that, but I learned a lot through that process.
Yeah, just stay motivated and not lose hope, because 7 months is a while.
It is. There's one thing that I had to find out through that process is that being in healthcare wasn't the only thing I was capable of. And that was one of my challenges that I had myself, because that's all that I knew. My undergrad is in healthcare. My family, a lot of them are in healthcare. And I thought, hey, this is where I've got to be. So the opportunities that I were applying for were, of course, in healthcare. So what I found with that is, I had some opportunities to interview and things like that. But the reality is that I had a lot of transferable skills and abilities that I needed to focus on to open myself up. So my motivation came from stepping outside of my comfort zone to see what else I could do. So what I ended up doing was I ended up starting to apply for other opportunities. Well, I did that. I interviewed for a few things, got a lot of overqualified, which I'm sure that a lot of job seekers are hearing right now. You're overqualified for this role. What is it? I actually had one person ask me, what is it to say that you're not going to leave us and go back to healthcare because that's what your background is in? I actually heard that. And, it was a challenge, and it's going to be a challenge for everybody. But the reality is that you've got to be able to fight that comfort zone. You've got to be able to step outside of it. But most importantly, you've got to learn to ask for help. It's okay to ask for help. A lot of people feel like they don't have to, or they feel like they can do it by themselves. But I was that way as well. And I went ahead and asked for help myself, and that really opened doors for me. So that helped me stay motivated too, because they helped speak with me. They helped push me. They helped do things like that I needed, that I didn't think I needed, but in reality I did.
Yeah. So what sort of people were you getting help from?
Well, one of my closest friends, but he was a recruiter. He still is. I had actually reached out to him and said, hey, I need some help, and I didn't think that I did. I'm a writer. I love to write. I thought my resume and everything was perfect. I was like, the grammar's there. The full sentences are there. It's explaining, and this and that. And I'm getting through to it. And he looks at it. He's like, yeah, you need some work. And I was like, oh boy. So, I asked him to help me. So he started making these suggestions. And then he was like, I tell you what, send me your resume. I'm going to change it. And I was like, okay. At that point I was kind of stuck. I was like, okay, well, what else is there to do? I'm getting interviews. It's not going anywhere. I'm being told I'm overqualified. And then I started wondering, are people even seeing my resume? I sent it out. I'm like, someone's got to be seeing it, at least interested in talking to me, but nobody was. So, so he shared with me some of the things that he had learned through being a recruiter, especially in terms of recruiters that look at hundreds of resumes a day. And my application, as much as I liked it, it was too long. And he said, I got past the first page and was done myself. So he's like, and then I'm your friend. He was like, yeah, they're not going to read it. So he revised it for me. He actually put it into two categories. So he had my resume, and then he had extra qualifications in a separate file, which I'd never heard of before. But so that kind of pushed me, because I was like, okay, well, what's the point of that? He said, well, if someone reads the resume and they want to read that information, they'll open it up, but you don't want to lose them before they even want to read it in the beginning. So he helped me with that process. And actually, believe it or not, after he revised it and I put my application out there, I started immediately getting feedback from employers, immediately having them call me, had several interviews, several offers, and I actually had choices. But it wasn't until I asked for help that I actually started to make a difference.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I think that's pretty common for people, whether it's job seeking or like any other activity, that it's like, I've got this, I know what I'm doing, I can manage it by myself. And I love that. Just asking help, right? It made such a difference for you. Like,
absolutely.
Job search, right? It's incredible.
Yeah.
And so I have a question for you. So we had pulled out kind of like your relevant transferable skills, right?
Uh-huh.
Do you have that in a separate document, or was it just like at the top of the resume, or what did that look like?
So the way that he built it, and this was back in 2014, obviously, things changed through the years, but at the time, what was being looked at was one-page resumes. I'm seeing a lot more that there are some going a little further than a page these days. As a recruiter myself, I am seeing that, but back then it was one page. That's what they wanted, one page. And so what he did was he just made the bulk of my background but into that one page. But what he told me was, he said, you need to revise this for each position. He said, which I never heard of before. I'm like, you've got this like boilerplate resume you send out to everybody. And he's like, no, he's like, you need to revise it for each position. You need to make it stand out. And so he gave me a boilerplate resume, but he told me to, kind of tweak it as I go. So I did. And that's what it was. But what he did was he put it on one page, and basically it just focused on my most recent employment. It didn't go back real far, just my most recent. And he said to take that and twist those transferable skills into that position. And I'm like, that is an interesting way to look at it. And I'd never thought of that before. I've been hiring for a couple of years at the point. I'm like, I thought I knew what I was doing, but he knew more, making it more SEO compliant. A lot of people are like, well, what's SEO have to do for it? Well, if you're putting it through a search engine, or if you're putting it through an ATS, if you will, it's going to pull those words out. It's looking for those. So chances are, he told me it wasn't even making it through. So the second page was all of my skills that I had that I could have. It had all of my volunteerism. It had all of the projects that I've done, and it had a lot of the teams that I've led and the results of those. So the main resume was just the bare bones of what I did that made me qualified for that role. And that's based off of what that job description showed. And that's how it stood me out, because they saw, okay, he's qualified. And then they could click on that and say, oh, so this is what he's done, so he can do it. There's a difference between being qualified and a difference between seeing that I could do it on paper before they even talk to me. So that really helped me out.
Yeah. I love that call out of bringing the most relevant information to the top, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's what the recruiters need. And like you said, it's amazing that you do all this volunteer work and stuff. Like, that's awesome. But as a recruiter, especially when you're digging through potentially hundreds of resumes, right? Like, I could review hundreds in a week, right? So many. That relevant information needs to be like right there.
Yeah. Absolutely. Especially now that that's what I see. I'm like, oh man. So once I see that, I'm like, this is great. If I don't see it, it's like, uh-oh.
Yeah.
So yeah, absolutely.
As a recruiter, how long do you spend looking at a resume when you're like,
if I'm going through a lot, typically you're gonna flip through it within a minute or two, because you're going to look for keywords. If those keywords, like for instance, if I have a hiring manager looking for an experienced role, if I don't see on that resume something stand out that shows that experience, then I might look at it for a minute or two and then move on. It really depends on the position. Now, if it's an unexperienced position, I know there's a lot of talk out there between given experience and things like that. When I'm talking about that, I'm talking about where it's required skill sets or education or something like that. If someone doesn't have that education, then it might be 1 or 2 minutes. Now, if they have, it could be 5 minutes. Now, if it gets really detailed, then it's a lot longer. It's very position specific is what it is in reality. But on the most part, I've seen that a lot of research shows that, you've got seconds up to a minute to catch the attention of somebody until they lose that focus. And I think that's pretty standard too.
Yeah. Yeah, that's definitely how it went for me, especially if you've already got some good people in the pipeline maybe, or you've already got a couple of resumes that you've already picked out. At that point, you're scrolling. And like, I hate that that's the reality, but that's kind of just the reality of like recruiters wouldn't be able to get through their jobs otherwise, right? Because there's so many things happening.
Yeah.
Candidates to be aware of that.
Yeah.
So I was going to ask what strategy you used to get back into full-time work, but we kind of talked about that a little bit. Massive. So what kind of advice would you give to people who are looking for a job today?
Well, my number one advice is something that I actually share a lot. I tell people to never give up in the face of adversity. Adversity is going to surround us all the time, and you've got to be able to face it head on. You've also got to be able to step outside of your comfort zone. Our comfort zone limits us so much that we do not even realize it. And every situation that we go through is setting us up for something in the future. So if you look at this time frame, you've got to remember that you're not alone. There are 3.3 million people unemployed right now. You are one of those 3.3 million. So knowing that there are other people out there going through what you're going through should show you that it's okay. It's not just you. So start focusing on things that you like, focus on things you enjoy, start reading, start catching up on things, start getting more skills. There are tons of universities out there that are offering free courses. It's amazing. Things that you can do in your free time, but you've got to focus on yourself, focus on your health, keep yourself healthy, keep your mindset fresh, and be ready to power forward and not give up. Keep applying and keep looking for opportunities and network as well. Networking is key.
Is key. So it's beautiful. Thank you so much, Chris.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I so appreciate being here and sharing vulnerably with everyone. Thank you.
Hey, you're very welcome. It's my pleasure. I'm glad that you've had me. It's been fun.
Last quick thing. Do you want to share about Chris Cares quick?
Oh yeah. So Chris Cares is of course my hashtag. That's my personal brand. I've had a phenomenal coach, and I can call her out as Judy Fox. For anyone who is on LinkedIn, follow Fox Rocks. That's who my coach is, but she's helped me kind of build myself and come up with a personal brand. And so I built my brand with her coaching last year. And it's just a way for me to show people that, I'm a recruiter and I hire for a company. This is what I do, but I'm also here to help people to be able to make differences in their lives. So the fact that it says Chris Cares is the reality is I do a lot of things to be able to prove it. And I just want to help people as much as possible. So that's kind of where my Chris Cares hashtag came from.
Amazing. Beautiful. We all really appreciate it. So thank you for the work that you're doing.
Hey, you're very welcome. Thank you.
Awesome. Well, we'll talk to you later, Chris. See you guys
All
next time.
right. See you. Take care.